the data does point here too. Why it's so effective is because you're on this company's website or you're on the school's website. You've just probably clicked through the homepage, read about their program. You're excited about it enough to fill out something. And so it's just capitalizing on that interest and excitement. And usually if your requests or your questions are answered as you're thinking about it or on that website, you won't go somewhere else to find an answer. It's kind of shutting out the competition before they can even start a conversation with the competition.
Hey, welcome to the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast here on the B Podcast Network. This is a show dedicated to helping higher ed marketers tell better stories, create better content, and enroll more students. My name's John Azzoni. I'm the founder at Unveiled, and we're a video production company working specifically with college marketing teams to make it easy for them to scale up and even automate their student and alumni success stories through our subscription approach. And you can learn more about that at unveiled.tv, and that's UNVEILD.tv. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, go ahead and subscribe. We'd love to have you. And if you're wanting your college and university's content to resonate on a deeper emotional level with prospective students, with alumni, with parents, whatever, I want you to subscribe to my free newsletter. Every week I send out tips and insights on creating more emotionally resonant content, including examples and best practices from other institutions, articles and blog posts, that week's podcast episode, and much more. So head over to unveiled.tv/newsletter and sign up. All right, let's get on with the show. All right, my guest today is Cade Scott. Cade is the founder of Enroll Boost AI. His company helps trade schools enroll more students by building them an AI-driven enrollment officer to engage with students around the clock, significantly increasing the number of students who enroll. In this episode, we're talking about the speed to lead method and how Cade created this AI enrollment officer and what that could mean for a school like yours. So Cade, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
Awesome. So we always start out with what's something that people would be surprised to know about you?
Well, maybe this isn't a surprise that to people that do know me, or maybe this isn't the biggest surprise, but I actually come from a storytelling background. So I went to school at the University of Iowa. I majored in English creative writing because I thought I wanted to write books and teach in university for my career and for the rest of my life. And I actually relocated to Northwest Arkansas, to Fayetteville, Arkansas, because I got into the graduate program here for fiction. 4 or 5 years ago now. And again, chasing that dream. And so if you search my name on YouTube or the interwebs, you may find a short horror film out there that I wrote. And you may find some other horror short stories that I've written. And
typing your name into YouTube right now.
They're out there, and they live in different forms. Now I haven't published in like any great literary magazine. I've actually written for a company that published kind of chat fiction stories, and that's where I really. Like, I hate horror. I'm just going to put that out there. As in, it scares me. And so for me to write horror wasn't by choice. It was because this platform you either wrote horror or romance. And it turns out I was a better horror writer than romance writer. So I've written countless horror stories. And that's why I'm really, I guess, good at it, is because I had a ton of practice just publishing for this app. And so I then developed that into a couple of short films, and here we are now. So yeah, storytelling background for those of
That's
you
really cool.
who don't know me. Yeah,
I watched The Sixth Sense once, and it has horrified me ever since.
Yes, yeah. Pun intended, right? No, yes, that is actually a really great movie. I love smart horror, so horror that's not just in it to jump scare you, horror that actually is a great story. And horror just adds to that. So
for sure, I'm sure like that's what keeps me from watching a lot of horror films, is because I am so easily jump scared. Like
same.
I am the guy in the movie theater that will just scream like a girl. Like like it's just totally like it's a reflex. Scream like a woman. Not like a girl or or a woman.
There you
A
go.
female. Scream like a
Yes.
female.
I'm the same way, and I'm the one that has to read. If I'm going to watch a horror film, I'll read the plot beforehand, so I'm not surprised. I'm not scared by the scary element, especially the jump scare. So I know it's coming. I have to know it's coming. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. This is a curveball question that is really just a yes or no.
Okay.
Brian Piper, who I get his, I don't know if you follow Brian. He wrote a couple books on marketing, and he's at University of Rochester. Anyway, I get his newsletter. He emailed a newsletter this morning about cold plunges, and I responded to him. I was like, I'm going to start asking guests on my podcast what their view on cold plunging is, because I'm just hearing about this everywhere. So, Cade, what are you a cold plunge believer or not?
I've never done it, although I know of the craze. So I haven't partaken in the cold plunge, but I hear it's great. So I'm in the middle. I don't know. I haven't done it. It sounds great. Would I do it? Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I tried the cold shower thing. It was just uncomfortable, and that's as good as it got. I didn't feel like energized.
Didn't feel any
the rest
spike
of the day. No, but we have a pool, like a above ground pool, and I'm tempted to just go break the ice out there and just jump in and see what happens.
Yeah. Do another podcast episode on cold plunging and tell us how you feel.
There we go. All right. So we're all about, obviously storytelling and content creation here on this podcast. But, what good is any of that if, people are like fumbling the ball when a website visitor comes and decides to become a lead or expresses interest. So describe, you shared with me a little bit ago when we connected this speed to lead case study. So describe just like high level what that is. The speed to lead method.
So the speed to lead method, speed to lead is just basically how fast can you respond to a lead once it comes in. So in my case, and maybe in other people that are listening to this podcast, their cases, how fast can you respond to an application once that application comes in? And there's data out there, and there's you search this term on Google, and there's a ton of just articles about it and how fast you should respond to a lead once it comes in. And a lot of the data says 10 minutes or less. After 10 minutes, if you can't respond within 10 minutes, your chances of converting that lead or bringing them to the next step in the process, whatever that next step is, goes down significantly. I think like 10 times, and then just gets almost near impossible as days pass. Which, given all of the data out there, it's surprising to me how rare this is. Like if you fill out a form somewhere, or you apply somewhere, or, anything as a consumer, when I inquire about something, rarely do I get any kind of response within 10 minutes. So even though the data shines a positive light on the speed to lead method and responding to your applicants or leads within 10 minutes, rarely do companies use that data or that method to their advantage.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I just got me thinking about like when I'm like impulse shopping or just trying to solve a problem or something like that, and I'm reaching out to somebody. First of all, it's always kind of like, I want to know right now, like I want to know what it costs, or what, I have questions right now. So like anytime there's any sort of like chat function, I really feel like that brand is elevated if I can kind of like get instant message with them, even if I know it's a robot. So like, but like just the importance of like catching me when I'm excited about something. Or not even excited, but just like I'm in the mode to solve this problem right now. And so who's going to be the one to like catch me before I, move on to something else.
I think that's why, logically, and I think that the data does point here too, why it's so effective is because you're on this company's website, or you're on the school's website. You've just probably clicked through the homepage, read about their program, read about the product, you're excited about it enough to fill out something. And so it's just capitalizing on that interest and excitement. And usually if your requests or your questions are answered as you're thinking about it or on that website, you won't go somewhere else to find an answer, right? If you have questions, or if you're looking for something and and that something isn't satisfied in that moment, then you'll go somewhere else. So I think, yeah, it's capitalizing on that excitement and kind of, I guess, shutting out the competition before they can even start a conversation with the competition. That's why it's so effective. At least that's what I think. Yeah.
And you would think that, in the end, if you just make it onto the list of people that they're considering, they're going to choose the best option of all those options. But really, it's more likely that they're going to choose whoever got in their head first and convince them that they were a good enough solution enough to move forward. Because I'm not always I'm happy with just a company that can just can you solve my problem? If the answer is yes, great. I don't necessarily need to then scour the internet for all the other possible options, ways that I can save 25 cents a month on a subscription or whatever.
For sure.
Let's just move on with life,
Right.
So.
Yeah. I think, that's is this solution, I mean, your solution could be the best solution, right? But is this solution good enough to help solve what I'm here for? And I think at least as from a consumer perspective, I'm pretty lazy. If you can solve my issue within that moment and then we get going and rolling, great. I don't have to do all that other research and searching.
Right. Yeah. So it really is
less friction there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a quite a differentiator. I feel like.
Yes.
I know when I was doing, I told you earlier, when I was doing weddings, I worked for a company that was we did a lot of high-end wedding videos, and I sort of took over the sales part of that at a certain point. And then when a lead would come in, I would call them right away, and they were always really pleasantly surprised to get a phone call. I don't know how that would work now when people are don't call me, just text me,
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm not sure how phone calls have evolved in the last 13 years, but that was a differentiator, and we would get on the phone and we would get a consultation set up, right in that moment, and we'd go over pricing and all this stuff, and I found that made a big difference.
Yeah.
Quick break here. I have a question for you. Have you ever had to manage the production of a video before for your school, where you were the person that had to coordinate all the scheduling? You had 5 people that needed to be interviewed for this thing, and you had to juggle all the schedules and figure out how to line them up for individual slots miraculously on the same day. And on top of that, you had to talk to your facilities guy and make sure the door to the engineering lab was going to be open at a certain time so the crew could get in there, film some B-roll. You had to coordinate volunteers to be in the footage and blah, 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 and, right? Let me tell you something. Working with an outside video vendor should not look like this. Unfortunately, I've worked with enough video folks to know that the mainstream school of thought is they will coordinate the crew and all the production stuff, the editing, etc., and they will expect you to coordinate all your folks. And I'll be honest, sometimes there's stuff that the video people just can't coordinate for you. I'm probably not going to email your college's president out of the blue to ask them to be in this video and to coordinate their schedule when they've never heard of me or this project. That just makes more sense coming from you, at least to get their initial buy-in. But as much as possible, your job should be to get buy-in from all the right people and then introduce those stakeholders to the video producer to coordinate, which is not you. Unfortunately, we live in a world where it just doesn't work like that most of the time. In fact, I talked to a marketing director at a pretty well-known art school recently who told me he hired this video crew to film a couple program promo videos, and they paid a lot of extra money. This was a bit of a splurge, is the impression I got. And they got 2 videos out of the deal. And he said to me, all that money we paid and I still had to coordinate everything. We paid a premium for someone to do these videos and I was doing all the grunt work. So here's the deal. At Unveiled, one of the things we take really seriously is making sure the process is easy on you, especially that pre-production process, which is where a lot of the not fun stuff tends to show up. So whether we're working together through our video storytelling subscriptions, a big commercial, or maybe a smaller one-off video project, know that in addition to delivering a great end product, we also have our eyes on making that a smooth and oftentimes fun journey along the way. And even after it's done, we want to make sure you're set up for success, which is why we give you all the raw footage, all that B-roll and interview footage to repurpose however you want at no extra charge. So if you have video needs right now, don't let the management of those projects stress you out. We are your partners in taking as much work off your plate as possible. So if that's you, I want you to head over to unveiled.tv. That's unveiled.tv and book a call with me. And let's talk about how we can best support you. All right, back to the show. So you were, let's see. So the First Class Dental Assisting School of Nashville.
Yeah, mouthful, yeah.
It takes me 5 minutes just to say the name.
There you go. If you get through that, then you're well on your way to applying, yeah.
It's like you're going to submit an application, then just start saying the name.
Yeah.
And then whoever reaches out to me before I'm done.
Yeah.
So they worked with your company on boosting enrollment. Tell me what your partnership was like. What was the problem they were having when they reached out? Why'd they reach out to you? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so they were a brand new dental assisting school in the Nashville area, and the owner, a family relation, he's my cousin-in-law, I guess you could say. Okay. The cousin of my wife, and so he knew I had done marketing, and he wanted to start a dental assisting school in Nashville because he found that dental assistants from the other bigger named schools in the area that he was hiring weren't well prepared for the role. So he's like, you know what, I'm going to start a school that trains dental assistants kind of the right way, or the way that's needed. And I was in marketing, hadn't done any kind of like higher ed marketing at that point. And he was like, hey, can you help me out? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot, you know? And so the challenge became, hey, we're a brand new school. We're competing with community colleges, other technical kind of colleges in the area, and other accelerated dental programs that had 300 plus 5-star reviews. And in doing research, I had seen a few dental assisting schools tried to start and then just kind of faltered after a year. It was tough to gain traction. And I was like, okay, we could, and we started doing kind of the traditional types of marketing. You know, we were doing digital marketing. We were trying to get into schools. You know, we had a digital presence, tried to build a physical presence, send out mailers, and we were starting to get applications. But we couldn't get anyone to talk to us after they applied, or to let alone commit or enroll or come in for a tour. And kind of looking back, it was because once they applied, a day would pass. We would then send them this kind of blanket generic email that was like, hey, you've been admitted. Please come to our school. Here's how to secure your spot. Pay thousands of dollars to do so. Mm-hmm. And I was like, duh, you know, looking back, it's like, duh, that's not going to work. And so we were, okay, let's try to set up a meeting with them one-on-one, you know, let them pick their time. As soon as they applied, we gave them a Calendly link and said, hey, pick a time. You can meet us, talk to us, 15 minutes, and then we'll schedule a tour. And that was starting to work. We're starting to get people to book times, but when we showed up to the Zoom link, we were getting no-showed. I don't think we had one person show up for that.
Wow.
And so
that's surprising. Yeah,
I know, right? It was like, oh man, obviously this is not working. You know, we tried sending reminders. We tried sending kind of generic nurture emails. Why isn't this working? Okay. So the next application that came in, what I did was I started kind of applying to different dental assisting schools, not in the area, but like around, like those that looked to be successful. And what I found was those that seemed to be filling their classrooms and expanding across kind of the US, there's one thing in common. They would either call me or text me within minutes of me applying. And I was like,
Hmm.
There must be something going on here. And so I waited by my computer. As soon as someone applied, immediately said, "Hey, I just saw you applied. Love to. What would you be open to?" We talked about this at the beginning. Would you be open to a call or a text? And I've found that it depends on if that person is 20 to 25, they'll almost always say, "Yeah, we can text." If they're
Mm-hmm.
25 or older, they'll say, "Yeah, I'm free for a call." So that's
Yep.
an interesting dynamic because you
Mm-hmm.
said now it's like, "Hey, don't talk to me, text me." And I think that is really true. Most of our
Yeah.
applicants want to be texted, and that's a really huge advantage if you can not only start the conversation within 5 minutes, but start texting them within 5 minutes. Um, anyway, so we found that, oh man, I started doing that with applications that came in between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. because that's when I was on, and we were moving students through the funnel. We were setting them up on tours. They were coming to the tour. They were getting excited about the school. They were committing to the program. They were submitting their forms. They walked in the first day
Mm-hmm.
of classes, and we're like, okay, the speed to lead. And in the back of my mind, I knew that term because I had read kind of the research that was pivotal to start this conversation, or was the first time the lead method came about, back when I first started marketing. And so I was like, I pulled that article back up, reread through it, and was like, okay, there is something to this, to the speed to lead method. But here's the thing. Okay, so we understand speed to lead is important. Being able to talk to them 5 minutes after they submit their application is the difference between moving them to the next step and losing that lead. Most of these applications now are starting to come in as our marketing was cranking up. Interestingly enough, 7 p.m. or later. Like, people were applying late at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sleeping, so I wake up the next morning, receive the application, try to make contact, and hear nothing. So I was like, there's got to be a way. How do we do this? Do we need to hire someone to to work the night shift? Like, we're losing students not being able to respond as quickly as we can. And the ChatGPT craze was going on around that time. And you hear the term chatbot. And so I was like, okay, if I could somehow train ChatGPT on our school's information, hook it up to our site in a way that as soon as someone submits an application, it starts that conversation with someone. It responds within 2 minutes, so that automation sets in. And not only does it respond, it actually engages in conversation all the way to the point of persuading the student to or talking with the student, seeing if they qualify for the next step, which in our case was a tour. And so after a few, tweaks and just learning about the technology, I was able to do that. I was able to set up an AI powered kind of enrollment officer or admissions advisor who could respond to someone within 2 minutes that they apply and have a conversation with them and move them to the next step. And it was me. It was human. It didn't sound like that chatbot or that AI.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, we filled the classroom in our first term, and we filled it a second term, and we're filling it a third term, and we're on track to try to open a second class in our fourth term, because it's so effective now that we're enrolling students and getting reviews, and that organic side's coming to fruition, not just the paid side in advertising. But I could flip a coin. I knew that, and I have the stats of, like, if someone applied and we engaged within 2 minutes, there was 1 out of 2 applicants would end up walking through our doors and committing.
Wow.
And again, there's a long nurture cycle that happens after that. You move them to a tour, they're excited, then you have to keep them excited for months before they walk in the door. But just starting that conversation was essential to that stat. It was the difference between 0 commits and a full classroom. The speed to lead method was vital to our success, and I believe to a lot of schools' success, especially trade schools.
Yeah, and what I like about just what I've learned about you recently is that you're a good marketer. Like because even when
Oh,
reading through reading through
thank
your
you.
case, you're reading through your case study for this dental assistant school, even like because you got to the point where it was like, here's the first thing I tried and it wasn't successful, and it was like that automated email. And what I noticed about it is like actually that automated email was pretty well optimized. I really liked the step 1, step 2, step 3. Like I could tell that like you have an understanding of like people need this broken down into simple
Mm-hmm.
parts. And then hopping over to your website this morning, I was really impressed by you go like the about me section or whatever. It's like who I am. It's literally one sentence about you, but then I scrolled down, I was like who you are, and it's 4 points about like
Mm.
this is the profile that describes you if we're a good fit for each other. And I was like, man, that's brilliant. Like I should steal that, because that's really what. And I started to think, I'm like, I'm way more interested in how he understands me than do I
Mm.
understand his background.
Mm.
Um, and so all that to say, like, you know, I feel like you already have a good understanding of, how to optimize communications and stuff like that. But
Mm.
even so, embracing failure is a huge a part of that. And you never know what's going to work. I just posted a poll this morning, actually, because of the because of this, because I'm like, I got to that part in your case study, and I was like, oh, that'd be a great podcast episode, just like people talking about what they tried that didn't work.
Yeah.
And people have been jumping on this poll and saying, yeah, let's embrace failure. I mean, it's viral by my stat standards to have 9 poll respondents within the first half hour. That's viral to me. So this thing, I think, Oprah's going to talk about this tomorrow at the very least. But yeah, I think anyway, all that to say, like, I like that even somebody like you that clearly has a good understanding of what people need to hear, and how to move people through a funnel. You still have to try things and fail and just learn from the
Yeah.
failure and embrace the failure.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to say I am one of those poll respondents who said, yes, I would love to learn through other people's failures, because yeah, that's how I stumbled across this AI powered enrollment officer. It was when I taught creative writing at the university as I was an adjunct. I used to tell my students, each draft of your paper you're aiming to be less wrong than you were before. And I feel like maybe it's a glass half empty kind of a viewpoint for some people, but that's how I view even marketing. I'm just like, each day I'm trying to be less wrong than I was the day before, because I know that I'm never going to be like completely perfect or right on something. And so it's
Yeah.
just like, how can I, and that's optimization. How can you be less or more efficient? Is the glass half full? Glass half empty is less wrong. How can the process be less wrong than it was yesterday? And that's kind of my
Yeah.
philosophy, and how you're able to, and then having a strong bias toward action is another one of my favorite phrases, because it's like, you can't fail unless you're like, just go and do it. Just go and try something and see how it does, and then adjust when you're like, oh, this worked, this didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think so. I mentioned Brian Piper's email this morning about cold plunging, and actually the point of his email was give things time, because like the first time he did cold plunging and this whole cold stuff was
Mm.
like, it was uncomfortable. He didn't like it. It wasn't really producing any results, but he's stuck with it for, I can't remember now, like a year or something like that. And now he's starting to see results, and he can stay in this ice bath for 3 minutes plus and not be out of breath. And but he likened that to content marketing, and how you need to give things time, and your leadership needs to know that that content marketing is going to take time to figure out. And I really think that that's key with anything. And I think about like how your cousin-in-law, trusted you with his new baby,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and you probably felt this pressure to like be the hero and like just hit like smash enrollment numbers right away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
feel validated, and you feel like you didn't let them down and stuff like that. But like having to go through that trial of failure is so important. I worked with one client when at my previous production company I worked for. We kind of like did a little experiment. We partnered with a Facebook ads expert, and so it was this sort of a friend of mine who owns a car repair shop, and they're just really cool. I just love, as much as you can. I mean, I don't love any car repair shops, but I love this one, and I've posted about it on Facebook multiple times because they've just been really cool every time, and they like know me by name and all this stuff. Anyway, but we started to work with them on Facebook ads because we found this guy that was his niche was Facebook ads for car repair shops, and he could just like super like just smash their numbers with this campaign that he had. But the important part was, hey, there's going to be a month or two of just testing, and you have to be along for the ride with the testing. And my friend with the car dealership, he was like, I need to see numbers. Like in the first month, if we're not seeing numbers, it's not worth doing. So we were kind of like, all right, we'll take a risk. We'll try to hit. And we didn't. We ran into challenges specifically with how his company is set up and the communications flow. When like a lead would come in, everyone had to adjust, like their front desk sales staff had to adjust to like, how do we handle these Facebook leads? And like, there was this big learning curve, and there was some success, but it really just like highlighted the point of like, when you hire somebody to do something for you to solve a problem, it's not an even exchange of I'm going to give you this money and my problem will be solved. It's like you're going to get in here and we're going to figure this out together. But like, but it's more you're saying like, I need someone to commit to this problem, over a long period of time. That's what Brian was saying in his newsletter of like, content marketing should be an investment of like 12, 18 months before anyone says it's not working. Anyway, that's just what stuck out to me. I really appreciated in your case study that you included the failure points, because it really actually deepens. I was just like analyze things that I read. I'm like, why does this appeal to me if I were a buyer of Cade's? If I was like someone, I'm like, I actually really like this failure stuff is in here because it actually deepens my appreciation for what you do.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's making me think now I should go back and tweak the case study a little bit, because what I don't mention is we started marketing with the goal of enrolling during a certain term, but that term came and went without any students. And so it was like, that pressure that I felt was like, and props to my cousin-in-law, Brian, Dr. McLaughlin, for investing and waiting and kind of like seeing it out, because I remember telling him, he's like, all right, well, we'll just move it out to the next term and keep rolling, and I'm like, we're close, man. We're close. And I'm not saying that just to preserve my job or anything. It was like just a couple of tweaks here or there. Cause that's when I was starting to figure out, okay, if I can respond quickly, there seems to be some traction here. And so I was like, all right, I think a few tweaks to the website, a few tweaks to our process here, and we'll be off and rolling. Like we've learned a lot in this 3-month span where there's nothing that has happened, and lo and behold, like that next week, I think we started to get a lot of commitments. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, maybe I'll go back and add that in, because there was a point where I was like, we failed. There's nothing, and we were supposed to have a term at this point, but like, I feel like we're close because of all that failure, so thanks for sharing.
That's good. So you made this AI chatbot. Let's see. So tell me, like, well, first of all, do you have a coding background, or did you tell me you worked with a company that did this, or like they did the coding for you or whatever?
No. If anyone out there knows of Zapier, basically and just other applications, I just got really good at connecting the different hooks that needed to be connected and prompting the technology. So we use a Zapier integration with our specific CRM that tags an application that comes in as a new applicant, and anyone with that tag gets sent to a conversation basically with ChatGPT, which is prompted to act as the enrollment officer or me, and is trained on our data, about our program, just common questions that I've found that applicants have, and their roles to qualify and then answer any questions and move to the next step. So no coding involved other than knowing how to hook things up and prompt ChatGPT in a specific way.
What were there any iterations of that process? Like, did you hit any points where the chatbot like misunderstood the student's response or said something that you were embarrassed by or something like that?
Oh yeah. Especially at the beginning, there were times where there was a refining of the prompt, because there were times where it would like, I might share this on my LinkedIn or somewhere, because it's kind of a funny response, where it would ask so many questions, like just like if you think, I guess, of a salesperson, like they're trying to get to know you, so they'll ask a bunch of questions to uncover a problem. It was asking way too many questions and going way deeper into things than it needed to be. And the person was like, hey, no offense, but can we move on to like answering some of my questions? And so I had to refine the prompt, and that was kind of a funny, like, oh, and that person still became a student, thank goodness. But again, just like, okay, I have to tweak it so it only asks 2 specific questions, and if that person comes out the gate asking their own questions, it just scraps it and moves on.
I imagine the student like meeting you in real life. You're like, God, this Cade is weird. Asks so many questions.
I don't want to know so much about my life, you know? Yeah. There's part of that. There's times where there's a specific phrasing within the prompt that it would just kind of carry on and repeat what the student said. And the student would, it happened a couple times before I tweaked it and changed it. But the student just thought I can imagine getting that response from someone and being like, 1, recognizing that it was AI, but 2, being like, what the heck? Anyway, safe to say they aren't students of ours. But there's times it's add too many emojis and stuff like that. For all of you out there who are listening, the prompt's refined to and optimized to a T. And I would, not to clog up my funnel, but if you would like to apply and try to break it, go for it. Because I trust
in challenge.
in its ability. And if it doesn't do what I need it to do, then I can further refine it. So try to get in there and break it so you can see for yourself that it won't ask you too many questions or just repeat your response. But yes, there was some heavy optimization and tweaking to the prompt itself to now it's like it's a well-oiled machine. And when I open those messages, I'm not kind of cringing to see if it made a mistake. Mm-hmm. It's moving people along pretty well.
Yeah. ChatGPT, you gotta keep an eye on it, you know?
Yeah.
You really gotta understand why it's coming up with the responses it is. And prompt engineering really is a skill. I was at the grocery store the other day. Normally we do, like a pickup order from like Aldi, or I don't know if you guys have Aldi where you go to Kroger. But the last few weeks it keeps like, we've been trying to make this dish that's like uses the 90-second rice in a bag that you just put in the microwave for 90 seconds and it's like ready to go. And they keep not giving us the rice. So we've had to like keep kicking this dish down the week after week. And finally I was like, I'm going to go to the store for once, you know, in the first time in like a year. And by the way, it was the most stressful experience. It's like all these elderly people that are just like making decisions in the middle of the aisle and you're like trying to get around people. Anyways, but I took this really messy list and I put it into ChatGPT and I said like organize this by department at Kroger, and it did. And so that was really helpful. And I started to like get to the checkout and I was like, why did my wife want me to buy apples? We have a thing of apples.
Oh no. Yeah.
Like, and I was just thinking, I'm like, maybe let me just check her original list. And it said, get produce definitely not apples. But ChatGPT was like, definitely
Interpreted
get
as
apples.
Interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah.
And it was like little things like that where I was like, oh, okay. And it added like another 20 minutes. I had to go back and like, okay, it interpreted her saying this as this, and that's not what she meant. And
Did it mess anything else up? Yeah.
no, I managed to course correct pretty good, I think. But by that time in the shopping experience, I'm like so overstimulated. I'm like, I just want to get out of here. I don't know if you have any. Do you have kids?
I do.
Do you have,
Yeah. One. Yeah. It's about to turn 2, but yeah.
okay, that's the prime like stressful grocery. And when my kids were little, the grocery drop off and pickup thing was in its infancy, no pun intended. But I remember going to the grocery store with my oldest, who's now 8. And I just texted my wife after it had been there for like an hour and a half. I was like, at this point, I'm just putting things in the cart. I don't even know what I'm putting in here because it's so like you're trying to find something over on this side of the store. Then the next thing you need is over on the other side of the store. And the kids wanting everything that they see. And you're like trying to navigate around people. I just think that grocery store experience is really hard. And then when you add kids onto it, I left the other day thinking, imagine if I had both my kids with me, how stressful that would have been. And I had AI as a shopping assistant.
The wrong shopping, yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, the good news is ChatGPT is right now, well, when I first iterated, it was still 3 before it turned to 4. And that was the worst it was ever going to be. And with 4, it's gotten astronomically better. I can just tell in the quality of responses from 3 to 4, how good it is. And I've kind of, there's different, like the way we train the ChatGPT on the material. It's like the way it's engineered and plugged into the prompt. It's like, it's not going to confuse, it's going to recognize it's definitely not apples, and give it to you. Yeah. Right. And so, that's, I've been on kind of just the regular ChatGPT 4 and asked some things and said, hey, can you group these things together? And it'll give me like things from far off. And it's like, oh yeah, I have to remember sometimes it's more of a creative, like a generative. It's not good with facts just yet, unless you feed it the facts beforehand.
Right.
So yeah.
That's great. Okay, so you talked about the risks already. So tell me about your company. So you got this thing down to like a well-oiled machine. Now you've worked out all the kinks, and so your company is based around this technology. Is that true?
That's true. Yeah. So what basically I'm giving you the same speed to lead ability and conversation ability. So when your staff is not there, or when you're not there to answer every application that comes in, not only can you respond through automation within 5 minutes, but you can respond and engage in a conversation and move that student to the next step, whatever that next step is. Because again, what I've found with just auditing other trade schools and other schools is, sure, the speed to lead is there sometimes. Like I'll get an email or a call or well, mainly not a call, but a text within 5 minutes. But it's that non-personalized kind of generic email and text, which I think is good. At the very least, that's you want to give acknowledgement that, hey, I've applied and we've received your application and we'll review it. But what this allows you to do, and what the chatbot that I'm able to create allows you to do, is again respond as if you are there in a personalized way, start a conversation and move them to the next step and you wake up the next morning and you realize, oh, I have a tour today, or whatever that next step is.
That's the dream. Like be converting leads in
your sleep. Yeah. And that was the most satisfying thing when I would wake up, because I have a little notification every time, and it's probably doing not good things to my brain, but I wake up like, did I get a notification of like this student applied, started a conversation, and it'll tell me like the student responded, and the student's now coming to a tour on Wednesday at 5, So that's extremely satisfying, because it's work. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, leads converting through my sleep, So that's what the technology I'm giving now to other trade schools who are interested, who want to incorporate the speed to lead method and that personalization outside of just the generic, but actually starting a conversation with that student.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And I love the focus on trade schools too. I think that's like a really good like niche thing to kind of really refine around. Yeah, and I would imagine they probably have much more specific questions than maybe that just someone out of high school applying to a big state university would be asking.
Right. Well, and two, like you could use it like at a state university, but to me, the decision that went into the college that I picked was it spanned a variety of factors. Like it was like, what am I majoring in? What's that school strong in? How close is it to home? It became less about, how many conversations could they start with me and how quickly, and became more about those other factors. Whereas a trade school, if I decide to be a dental assistant, now I'm looking at dental assisting schools. Which dental assisting school is best? And it's like, okay, which phone am I gonna? It's like any other. I don't want to say any other product or any other thing that you would buy, but it's like or software. But it's now which school. I know I become a dental assistant. I want to become a dental assistant. Which school is going to give me the best shot at that, or the best, or great advantage, or is going to, and again, what I found is sooner you can start that conversation, create that personal connection with someone, your chances of enrolling that student walking in go way up before they even have a chance to talk to any other dental assisting schools, So I think that's why it's really unique to the trade space, is because you're not competing with a university 100 miles away. You're competing with the 3, 4, 5, 6 other dental assisting programs in the area, or trade programs in the area. And it just becomes about, who's best at that point. And so how can you differentiate yourself?
Right. Well, cool, man. This has been really great. Where can people reach out to you at if they want to get in touch with you?
If they want to get in touch with me, they can reach out on my website, enrollboostai.com. There you can find the case study that John was talking about if you want to read kind of step by step what we were talking about. And there's a section on there to just schedule a 20 to 30 minute meeting with me to talk about, hey, what does this look like for your school? How can we implement the speed to lead method and that personalization, that conversation through AI?
Cool. All right. Awesome. So go check out Enroll Boost AI for sure. It's really cool technology. Cade, thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a fun conversation.
Thanks for listening. 3 things I want to give you before you go. Number 1, reminder to sign up for my free weekly newsletter, all about creating content that resonates emotionally with your audience. And you can do that at unveiled.tv/newsletter. Unveiled is spelled UNVEILD. Number 2, if you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone. Share it with your team, your boss, your dog, whatever. And if you're not already subscribed, I'd love for you to do that. Number 3, reach out to me. If you have comments, questions, you want to talk about a video project, whatever, my email is john@unveiled.tv. John is spelled JOHN. Or follow me on LinkedIn. If you're searching for me, my last name is spelled AZONI. That's all for today, and I look forward to catching you on the next episode of the Higher Ed Storytelling University podcast. Thanks.